everybody. I think we're live on Facebook now. Welcome everybody tonight to our Spirit and Truth webinar. I'm Kalani, and I'll be your host this evening with my special guest, Catherine Mullins, who is a fantastic worship leader and friend. And so before we jump all the way in, I want to encourage you, if you're just signing in on Facebook, hi, we're glad you're with us tonight. And I would encourage you right now, go ahead and hit share.
Hi, we're glad you're with us.
Share this post on your Facebook page so that more people can see it tonight, because we are going to have a great conversation with Catherine. Access Worship International is a nonprofit ministry. We are passionately committed to empowering and equipping worship leaders and worship teams to grow and to lead and to flow in the power of the Holy Spirit. That's who we are. And Spirit and Truth webinars are one of the things that we do regularly as a free resource to you, to worshipers, to lovers of Jesus. And we bring in different speakers, different worship leaders and worship teachers. And we, of course, our topic really focuses in on worship and different aspects of that. So first, I want to say hi to our webinar attendees tonight. They're starting to sign in. So there's people with Catherine and me tonight inside of this Zoom webinar. And so what's going to happen tonight, if you're not familiar with how we run things, Catherine and I are going to be live on Facebook for about 30 minutes or so tonight and get into some good conversation together. And then we're going to leave you. The rest of our time is going to be spent together just with our webinar attendees. It's going to give them an opportunity to go deeper and to just have an exclusive time of Q&A with Catherine and myself. So if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, wow, I wish I had known about that. I didn't realize it. This thing, like we call this a backstage pass. And if you missed the promo, if you missed our announcements about that, that might mean that you're not following us yet on social media. So I would strongly encourage you to look us up, Access Worship International. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, and also YouTube. You can subscribe to us there. But I think more importantly than all of those things, if you go to our website, accessworshipinternational.com, you can actually just click one button that puts you on our email list. And I know people are like, I don't want to be on another email list. And I totally get that, because I'm constantly deleting so many junk emails. However, if you sign up, we'll let you know about the special things that we're doing, like tonight. So you know, like, hey, we've got an offer for you. It's free, backstage pass. Jump in this with us. So why not? I say go for it. So subscribe, sign up, and then you won't miss any of the awesome stuff that we're doing. So we've had, this is year number 3 that we've been doing Spirit and Truth webinars, and we've had some incredible guests. We actually had Catherine, I think it was the end of 2019 was the last time she was with us on this. I think you're not. Yeah, you remember. And so you can find all of those on our YouTube channel as well. You can go back and watch any of them there. And this one will be there in a few weeks. We'll pop it over on our YouTube channel. So we're really trying to push our way to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you enjoyed these videos, if you like what we're doing, it would do us a huge favor if you just click subscribe. And as a bonus, hit the bell beside it, the little notification bell. It's super quick and easy, and it helps us as a ministry a ton. So, and as I said, we're a nonprofit ministry. So if you want to donate, if you want to partner with us, you can do so on our website. Again, accessworshipinternational.com is an easy way to do that. We have an easy way for you to donate. You can make a one-time donation, or you can even set up recurring payments. So that is probably the fastest I've gotten through that spiel to date. I'm pretty proud of myself. That's all out of the way. and once again, hello to our webinar attendees as you're signing in. It's so good to sort of see you. I can see all your names. For you guys who are in the webinar, just to let you know, you can, if you have a question, while we're talking tonight, you can pop it in the Q&A feature in this webinar. And we'll get to it later on. And be sure and say hi. You can use the chat feature as well, and leave comments and all that stuff. Okay, so I want to say welcome to Catherine. Catherine, thank you so much for being our guest tonight.
I am so happy to be here, Kalani. You know, I always love chatting all things worship with you. And I just want to give you a shout out to all the people watching. So Kalani Gleckler, to me, is one of the best songwriters that I know. You have been so inspirational to me for years. And it's funny because I don't think you're that much older than me, but whatever age difference, just a couple years, you know, you were doing this before me. And you wrote some songs that were foundational for me as a singer and worship leader. And so just thank you for that. And thank you for pouring into the people who are watching. I'm telling you, Kalani and her school is a resource that is so needed and so vital in today's world. And honestly, you're probably one of the only, I did just recently meet another girl. You're one of the only, though, girl music directors that I know that you can just slay musically and as worship leading. So for those of you who are interested in all that, Kalani's your girl.
Wow, thank you. That was thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. And you know, it's an honor to have you, and I'm grateful for what you're doing in the body of Christ. You are like, I think I said this last time, you're like one of the most like passionate, roaring worship leaders that I know. And I think the first time we really met and I kind of got to experience you leading a room in worship, I was like, we are kindred spirits. You know, we're very, very like-spirited and like-hearted. So awesome. Well, why don't you tell us, like, I'd love to hear, just catch up with you a little bit, catch us up on what's been going on with you the past year, even in, you know, with COVID and everything else. What's that been like for you? What's been going on?
So I think I'm, you know, standing with all Americans, and I guess globally, we all remember when those who led our nation, you know, called a state of emergency. So last year I was in Virginia Beach leading a women's conference in worship, and I was actually, I think, in the hotel lobby, and I looked down, and it was like seeing something out of a movie that the newspaper said President Trump has called a national state of emergency. And I remember thinking, what's going to happen? And then we were later on in the green room that night, and events kind of started canceling. And I was thinking, when is the next time as a worship leader that I'm going to actually be in front of people leading worship? I mean, even before this Zoom call, which we have been traveling a lot more now, but I just, you know, did a pre-recorded worship set for an event, and it's just some things have changed in that sense. But I remember thinking after, you know, I had this moment of like, what's going to happen? And then I remember thinking, whatever happens, and I don't know why I thought this, but it just kind of came to my mind, whatever happens, this is what we were made for. Mm-hmm. Even hard situations, you know, Christians are meant to shine in the darkness.
Yes, exactly.
Especially in the American church, when we've really had it made, and even though I get that there's other people that make more money than other people, and different people have harder situations than others, but the truth is, even the poorest people in America, compared to the rest of the world, are rich, are wealthy, you know? And so it was really a moment of thinking, okay, we're created to be light in the dark, and what is heaven's perspective of this? And I just want to make sure that, at least as it is up to me, that I'm shining in this season rather than giving into panic and fear. And so that's been a really amazing journey, just personally, between the Lord and myself.
That's so good. I think that is rising up as a theme for a lot of us, like not giving into fear and a lot of the other negative emotions that can put you in a swirl and get you so disoriented and distracted from like what the Lord is doing and, you know, and what he's up to right now. So you are traveling some, right?
So yeah, last year our travel schedule definitely went down and we didn't travel as much, but honestly this year it's been guns blazing and we are slammed with travel. And I think it's really, it was an interesting season, especially for the, you know, I obviously minister in predominantly charismatic circles. So I think the church as a whole was really trying to get, you know, grasp what was going on and kind of get a hold of what they needed to do in the next season. And I feel like, you know, the church is kind of starting to rally again, and they are understanding, and this is my personal belief, you know, the church needs to be open. And, as long as the world needs hope, the world is going to need the church. And so I think it's so important in hard seasons for the church's doors to be open. Yeah. And so I believe the church is catching on to that again and really getting, figuring out their way with that, obviously, being wise and using wisdom with it. So yeah, we are kind of going in full force, guns blazing. And our mission has just been to bring hope in this season to the church. And hopefully that'll then trickle out to the world, because the world needs Jesus and the world needs hope.
Absolutely. So in the places that you have gone, you were just somewhere, were you? Gateway?
I was in Gateway, Shelbyville. So it's like right outside of Nashville. So Pastor Jason Dodrell is a good friend of ours. And it's been amazing to see these church leaders lead their congregation through this in the season. And they have a really strong worship team there. I don't know if you've heard of Madison Street Worship, but they're integrity, and they're great.
Corey Voss and
all of them. Yeah. And so that's where they're based out of. And so it's been amazing just to see what they've been doing in this season and how they've been stewarding what God is doing in this season.
That's incredible. Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a little more traveling too. I'm kind of similar, just everything kind of slowed way down, which turned out to be a good thing in a lot of ways. But I feel really fired up. There's been, I was telling someone the other day, well, we had like a lot of churches in our city, and I'm sure a lot of people everywhere in the body of Christ, we started the year with a fast. Like a 3-week fast. And in the midst of that and coming out of that fast, my spirit was lit up. I feel more fired up right now and more passionate right now than I have in a while. I feel like activated or something. And it's like, I don't feel doubt and unbelief. Like my faith is stronger. My hope is stronger. I don't despise prophecy, even though there was this whole thing of with politics, which I'm not going to get into that, but just how it impacted a lot of people in the body of Christ to think, well, this is what's going to happen. And then it didn't happen. And it's like grappling with, well, did the prophets miss it? There's just like all this discouragement and some confusion. And it's so weird because I don't feel like I'm under any of that. I feel very much excited and we need to focus. Just get your focus back on Jesus. Because regardless of the political realm and what's happening there, he's king, he's on the throne, and let's go after what he's doing, period. That's just where I'm at right now. And so I have an expectation, I guess. And I think when, you and I were just talking before we went live about Sean Foyt and what he's doing. And when he came here to Jacksonville and did Let Us Worship, it sparked something, I believe, in the hearts of a lot of people and in my city. And I'll share this really quick with people who are watching. I actually put a video out yesterday about this. I just felt compelled to share. I'm not usually I don't go around sharing dreams all the time, but I felt really compelled, it was time to share this dream that the Lord gave me. I know it was over a year ago because it was pre-COVID, where I had a dream it was a dream in 3 short scenes. I don't know if you're a dreamer, Catherine, but usually if I have short, succinct dreams, oftentimes that's how God does it with me, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
but yeah, so in the first scene, that was the really interesting scene to me because I was in a room that looked a lot like a production room, like the one we have at our church. Lots of video screens, computers and all that. And there was a group of people and they were gathered around one main screen, just intently watching something. And it was a map on the screen. It was a map. And there were these red lines that were moving. They were traveling and expanding and branching out. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, I knew in the dream who these people were. I knew that they were a part of a specific worship, they were working with a specific worship leader. I won't even mention the name, but I said, what are you guys doing? And they were so excited. They were like, we're tracking worship. In other words, they were watching this, what was happening across the map. And I was like, cool. And then the scene changed. and I was in a beach house on the second floor of a beach house, huge window in front of me, and I could see the ocean, and I'm watching this wave come, and it's getting closer, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm thinking that thing's it's gonna hit the house, like it's gonna. And so it came and it crashed in through the window, and then the scene changed again, and I happened to be like an observer on the outside of my home church here in Jacksonville, New Life. And the parking lot had like a lot of like puddles and standing water everywhere. And people were running around and just like so joyful and worshiping and celebrating. And so I knew, what I was seeing was there was these waves of worship, if you will, like this movement across, maybe it was the whole nation, maybe it was global, but it was across a map. And then I got to experience it and see it hit my city. And so I just kind of held on to that in my spirit. And I feel like what God is doing right now, we're seeing that happening. Yeah. Like we've literally, and it's not just what Sean Foyt has done, but that's a part of it. And I think it's a sign. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an indicator of what the Lord is doing and what he wants to do. So that was my dream, and I'm excited about it.
Well, no, I love it. And I think it's so good because I feel like right now we are living in a time where there's an invitation from the Lord for worship to be redefined.
Yeah.
And it's a very strong invitation. And of course, we know and agree that the reason why all of us exist on the face of the earth is we exist to worship the Lord. Doesn't matter what individual calling we have as humanity. In 1 Peter, he tells us that we're a kingdom of priests, called to declare the praises of him who called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. And in doing so, that's part of our corporate call. There's no exceptions. Mm-hmm. Humanity exists to glorify God, to worship God. And so I think you and I, we would both agree, and I think a lot of people watching would agree, there's been such an attack on worship for a long time. And not only an attack, but I would say that the waters of worship have been muddied for a long time. They've been muddied with performance. They've been muddied with people's opinions, with wrong motives. And there have been so many things that have muddied the waters with worship. And I believe, there comes a time, even historically, where God gets to a point and he lovingly but intensely says, enough is enough. It's time for what you've been doing for so long. It's time for that to be redefined. And it's not you who needs to be doing the defining of it. It's not me that needs to be doing the defining of it. It needs to be the Word of God and the Spirit of God defining our worship. And so I think this past year and even into this year, we are at a crossroads in the church still. And it is an invitation for us to redefine our worship and get out of the muddy waters. And that's what I love seeing. It's like the worship movement springing up all over the country. And I think it's God saying, okay, I'm sweeping out the muddy water and it's time to get into the pure rivers of worship again.
Wow. That's so good. I think I was having a discussion with someone last night about, we call it the worship movement, and I think that's fine to call it that. What we've seen, certainly in my lifetime, as it relates to worship and worship music and all of that stuff. Yeah. But like what can happen with a movement when it becomes like a form and you kind of build things around it, and the next thing you know, the Lord's wanting to, like you just said, he's wanting to clear the waters out and it's like recalibrating, redefining worship. And, it might look really different what's happening next. It may be like outside the walls of the church, getting outside and, I don't know. I'm excited because I think there's some big shifts that are coming that are going to be amazing. Like if we'll partner with him and cooperate with him. You may have already answered. Like I was just going to ask you this question, and maybe you're already kind of answering it, but I wanted to ask you what do you feel the Lord is saying to you or emphasizing to you particularly for this year? Is there anything specific other than what you just said to me, like that you would say as a part of that?
So I guess I could. It's obviously a worship thing, but it's also more just a personal, practical thing. I really believe that God is calling the church in this season to radical obedience. And that can
Yeah.
be so simple. But I think, again, it goes back to these muddied waters in at least the American church. And I would say very much globally, because, Western culture, there's so many cultures, all over the world that really Christianity does look similar. Again, there's some that don't. But I think in many ways, our idea of Christianity has become very self-focused, self-centered.
Yeah.
And we've kind of created this version of a God who is here really just to be a genie in a bottle. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but we have to begin looking honestly at what we're believing, the theology of our lives. And when it comes down to it, I think it's, again, God is coming back to recalibrating what you talked about, getting us back to first love, getting us back to radical obedience. What does it look like to just live life and love God? And if especially in the worship world, if our worship is simply a paycheck, a way to make a living, a way to provide our family, that's not bad, but the Lord can obviously use that. But first and foremost, it is not about a paycheck. It is not about being a hireling. And that's where we get into prostitution of our gift. And again, it's going back to purity. God's calling us to radical obedience, doing it his way again, and saying, I understand that you've done it your way for a long time, but the reason the church is in the mess that it's in right now is because we have done it our way for too long. And I think even with the intensity of the things that are going on, we have to get back to a place of recognizing that God is not willing for his church to keep doing it their own way. He wants us to get back to following him, radical obedience, especially in the place of worship.
Yeah, that's so good. That's 100% right on. There's a post I saw, I like on your Instagram, you do a lot of little one-liners or quotes that are really potent. And one that I think it was fairly recent that you posted was the phrase was the secret place where warriors find their strength, and that really resonated with me. Can you expound on that a little bit? What that means?
Yeah. So earlier this past year, I guess for an example, we hit the ground running. So we've been going every weekend, sometimes multiple trips every week since bringing in the New Year's. And one of the biggest things that I realized I really had to preserve and protect in this season was my secret place time with the Lord.
Yeah.
And there were a couple times this month where I thought, I feel more tired from just traveling a lot. I was tired physically, but I was also starting to get kind of tired spiritually. And I realized that I needed to do a better job this month, just really protecting my secret time with the Lord. Yeah. And so I really started making that, which I usually try to make that a priority, but I had to make it a little more of a priority just because of my schedule. And it's just the truth. Our strength comes from the secret place.
Yes.
Especially as worshiping warriors, which is what we're doing in this season. We're worshiping warriors. We have to be able to minister.
Yep. She's gone again. I'm going to fill in the blanks, worshiping warriors in this season. I think the Lord is really emphasizing praise and high praise too, in this season, and courage that comes from that place of intimacy with the Lord, confidence that comes from our intimacy with Jesus, and knowing our identity in him, and understanding the authority that we carry in sonship and in our bridal identity and partnership with the Lord in this hour. So yeah, there's a place of there is a place for warring and being a warrior. So for me, if you're following me at all on Facebook or Instagram, I've been trying to post every Monday, putting out a video, just what's kind of brewing in my spirit, in my heart concerning praise. And what God is saying. She's moved to another location, ladies and gentlemen. All right, go ahead and unmute yourself. I can't hear you, but
all right.
Yeah, it's super glitchy for you tonight. We love technology when it works, and when it doesn't, it's frustrating. I know, I get it. We did one of these one time with Lindy Conant, and I dropped. I was just gone, and Lindy just kept going like a champ for 4 minutes on Facebook until I could get back up.
I wanted to see if it was my fault. So okay. I think we keep going in and out. My dog's out here now.
It's all right. I have two dogs in this house right now.
Sam, he's right beside me.
Oh, hi, Sam. Being so good. Oh, he probably loves being next to you.
He does. I think so. He's my little buddy throughout the week. I'll cover him with a blanket. So, all right. This went a little bit how we didn't expect it.
Warriors. I know. I wait till you watch the playback. I'm just going. Every time you're gone, I'm like, I'll just keep going.
Yeah. So it's just basically saying that we need to draw our strength from the secret place, and that's it. And it needs to be a non-negotiable. It needs to be foundational in our lives. And a lot of times I talk to worship leaders or musicians, and they're saying that they felt dry and they're dealing with different issues. And to be honest with you, one of the first questions I usually like to ask is, how is your quiet time with the Lord? Yeah. And it's so easy that when we get so busy, that seems to be the first thing that goes. But really, it's the most vital part of our lives. And so I think a lot of the issues today in the worship culture could easily be fixed by us just making sure that we spend time getting our strength from the secret place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. I think too, for people who are in ministry, that is an issue for people of burnout. And I was listening to a minister, a real wise minister, talking the other night to some younger people about the importance of being able to minister to the Lord and stay connected to the Lord and demonstrate that even in front of your people, rather than being distracted during worship with what's happening in the room. And there's always that tension and that pull, and how it's so important that we remember we're ministering to the Lord first. And that is really helpful in keeping yourself from getting burnt out, where we start to work out of that place of striving or getting things out of order, I guess you might say. Well, that's really good. I want to talk for a second about holiness, just for a second. We're talking about non-negotiables.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a generation of young people who just need to be given permission to pursue purity and holiness and consecration and being set apart, being radical in that way, in the midst of a generation and a culture that is in the other direction. Do you know what I mean? Yes. Can you speak into that for a minute?
Yeah. So the Bible tells us, obviously, that who may ascend the hill of the Lord does with clean hands and a pure heart.
Pure heart. Yeah.
Purity matters to God. Holiness is in the nature of God. It's part of the attributes of God, and we're created to live like Him. So exactly what you said, purity is a non-negotiable. And I think the hard thing is when we really are in the world so much, it can very much be easy for us to want to live like the world, and that pull of the world begins to kind of just really get us to a place that we're not supposed to be. And so I think living set apart is a really big deal, and we've got to make a decision and remember that God calls His people to be in the world and not of the world. And so that means that we're not supposed to be watching the same movies that the world's watching. We're not supposed to be making the same jokes that the world is making. We're not supposed to be, laughing at the same things that the world is laughing at and speaking the way that the world is speaking. We're not supposed to be gossiping. All of these things, when they're put into us, the Bible tells us it's not what you put in you that makes you unholy. It's what comes out of you that makes you unholy and defiled. And the truth is, I think we have kind of allowed ourselves to look so much like the world, and in doing so, we've begun to lose our power. And it comes back to God is requiring us to live set apart, live holy lives.
Yeah. Do you remember? You know who Pastor Terry Furr is over at the Refuge Church in North Carolina. I've shared this with a few people recently. There's a message that she spoke years ago, and I still have the notes, on my phone. And I'll just share this really quickly because it really spoke to me, and it's kind of one of those kind of weird stories in the New Testament where the Apostle Paul is preaching late into the night. He's having one of those long-winded moments, I guess, and there's a young man named Eutychus who is hanging out in the window. He was sitting in the window, and as the night got later and later, he got sleepy and he fell, right? He fell out of the window and died. And of course, he was resurrected, like they prayed for him, brought him back to life and all that. But what the point she was making in this story is really profound when you think about it. Obviously, in that time period, like no electricity, but there was there would have been like candles or whatever to create some light in the room. And the most light and the most even heat would have been in the center of the room where whoever was speaking was. Because like people would be, the person's in the middle of the room and there's people gathered around like in a circular fashion. That makes sense. That's kind of how it would have been set up then. And so here's Paul. And so the most light is in the center of the room. And she was emphasizing the absolute importance of staying close to the center. In other words, you can be in the room, you can be on the periphery. You can in like kind of the more like kind of the darker areas, but that's where people fall asleep. That's where people fall out of, you know what I mean? Like fall out of it's not really enough. If you want to burn, like it's not enough if you want to thrive, it's not enough to just be in the room. You need to get as close as you can to the center of the light, to the center of the flame. And I think it's time to encourage people and give them permission to burn, and to get around other people who are burning. It's if we want to thrive and we want to move in power, like you said, and really, see the things that God said we would see, the greater works, and like the kingdom being released. That you got to shake off some compromise and the things, and get around other people who are burning, so that your heart stays alive and burning and connected to your first love. That's where we've got to be, and it's okay to be that way. It's okay to take a look at what's causing you to be in a neutralized state, or in a position where you might just be a little sleepy or lethargic. Like, what's your position in the room? Pastor Terry's always dropping
she is. She always throws
stuff like that.
I agree.
So good. So good. Well, let me, we're going to jump off of Facebook Live in just a minute. Let me ask you one more question. And that is so there's a song called All Over Again that you wrote, the one that you recorded. And someone asked me specifically about that song, and they were asking if you could share how that song came about. I think this particular song has been a real blessing to this person who asked the question. So maybe a little song story as we close out this time on Facebook Live tonight.
Yeah, so that was one of my first songs that I started writing when I started traveling. And I had kind of gone through a hard season where I remember telling the Lord, I know that the Bible tells me your love is better than life, but I don't know if I fully believe that. Mm-hmm. And I said, I need you to show me. David wrote, I will praise you because your love is better than life. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, God, he wasn't lying. So he knew that his love was literally, the Lord's love was better than anything. And I said, I want to have that experience and I need that to be real to me. Mm. And so the Lord really started to reveal himself, and it was a little bit of a process. It didn't just happen overnight, but the Lord began to reveal himself. And in that season, I began to fall in love with the Lord all over again. And so that's really where that song came from, was just a reawakening to my first love. And a reawakening that comes when you really get to stare into his eyes of fire and be changed in moments of worship, because he's so real. The realm of worship, the realm of what's going on in heaven is so real, and we're created to engage in that and encounter him in those secret moments. And so that really was just an explanation of a moment that I had with the Lord, of my first love with God being reawakened.
Wow, that's so powerful. Let me ask you this then. So for people who just heard you tell that story, they're going to want to hear that song. Where can they find it? I'm assuming Spotify.
It's actually on Apple Music. So it's not on Spotify. It's like one of my older ones from back in the day. So check it out on Apple Music.
Go check it out. All Over Again by Catherine Mullins on Apple Music. And her website is catherinemullins.com.
Yes.
Check out everything she's doing. Catherine is amazing, and she's a burning one for sure. All right, so we're going to sign off of Facebook Live right now. If you're a webinar attendee, just stay right in here with us, and we're going to have an exclusive time with Catherine, ask her some more questions. And so for everybody watching on Facebook, have a blessed night. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Blessings, everybody.